Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. We are less than a week away from the football season returning. And this coming Saturday, August the 3rd, the Gills will travel to the Keepmoat Stadium to take on Doncaster in their Sky Bet League One opener, which can mean only one thing. Season preview time. I'm going to follow the same format as I did last year. So that will be having a look at the Gills in detail first, who I think will be the top scorer, who I think will have a breakthrough season, which youngster I think could have the biggest impact, the biggest question of all, where we will finish, a look at briefly pre-season and the new arrivals, and then a look at Sky Bet League One as a whole. Who will be champions come May, who will finish in the top six, and who will suffer the heartbreak of relegation into League Two. But as I say from the start, we are going to look at Gills. So first thing on my mind is top scorer 2019-20. Now this is going to be a lot more tricky than it has in the last two seasons, where I've plumped for the big Scouse man Tom Eaves, I do believe, and he was comfortably our leading marksman in all competitions in both of his 2 years at the club before leaving this summer for Championship side Hull City. As I say, it's a tricky one. I think what we might see this year, unless we can get in another marksman, we're still waiting on news of whether this bid for a higher division player has been accepted or not. But as it stands, I think the goals will be spread around more evenly. For that reason, I'm going to go for this man to be our leading marksman come next May. And it is this man coming up on your screen right now. That is last season's Young Player of the Year, last season's Chairman's Cup recipient, Brandon Hanlon, who I thought was very impressive in his first campaign with us. Whether he gets anywhere near the amount of goals that Tom Eaves did in his 2 seasons as top scorer, I'm not so sure. As I've already mentioned, I think we might have a case of more goals being spread around the team. I've said for a couple of seasons we need our midfielders to chip in with more. The early signs have been promising in pre-season, and let's hope that that continues when the games start in earnest. I think we might see a top scorer with around about 12 goals this season. I'm hoping the likes of Brandon himself, Mikael Mandron, who has now permanently arrived, Mikael and Jolly, Elliot List, Mark Marshall, if they can all chip in. If you can look at, and there's one more, the latest arrival, back end of last week, Alex Jakubiak. I think if we can get maybe between 8 and 12 out of the likes of Hanlon and Mikael Mandron, and then if the others can pitch in with half a dozen each, I think we'll be fine. At the moment, I do think we are one more striker away from really pushing on, but I'll talk about that more when we get to the league predictions. But yeah, my pick for top scorer for 2019-20 is going to be Brandon Hanlon. And let's move on to who I think will have a breakthrough season. And my choice may be surprising to a few. Some of you will completely disagree with me. I know that because not everyone's his biggest fan. I think he's suffered a lot since he's been with us. Therefore, my choice for a player to have a breakthrough campaign is this man. That is, of course, our left back, Bradley Garmston, who has suffered horrendous injury problems since joining on a permanent back in the summer of 2015. We know what an excellent left wing back he can be. He's got pace to burn. He's solid enough defensively. He's good going forward. He's got decent enough delivery at this level. I just think, unfortunately, 2 full seasons of injury problems meant that he's been lacking in confidence. And I know we spoke to him at the back end of last season and he says he wasn't injured. He just wasn't being selected. So let's hope that, having had a full pre-season, and let's hope that Steve Evans and Paul Rayner have put their arm around Bradley and said, this could be your year. So yeah, a slightly different choice in terms of a breakthrough. I just mean in terms of the fact that he can get back to playing regular, get back to really enjoying his football, get back to being our number 1 left fullback or left wing back, whatever it may be. So yeah, my choice for breakthrough season for 2019-20 is going to be Bradley Garmston. And that leads me on to a youngster who I think could have the biggest impact. And like last year, I don't mean in the sense that he's going to score 15, 20 goals, going to provide loads of assists, be man of the match every week. I just think it's someone that could have an influence on games, whether that's from the start, from the bench. and therefore basing it on that criteria and what I've seen so far in pre-season, my choice is coming up on your screen now. That is our lone attacker, Mikael Njoli, who I've been super impressed with since arriving on loan from Bournemouth. Saw him in the opening pre-season of summer and he scored 2 really well taken goals against Faversham and also provided a very good assist for the now departed Callum Riley. We have to obviously bear in mind levels of the opposition. Faversham were far from a proper test. That's no disrespect to them. Excuse me. I know they're suffering from financial constraints, which means that they probably weren't anywhere near as competitive as they have been in previous seasons when we've travelled down there for friendly games. But yeah, and Njoli was really good. Looks a bit raw, looks a bit naive at times. I think we're going to have to bear with him. There's going to be games where he has a stinker, I would imagine, based on the fact that he is very young, still learning the game, still learning his trade. But the biggest thing for me in that game was I thought, yeah, he's got something about him, but we need to see him do it against higher level opposition. And the thing that really excited me was his performance against Charlton. I thought he was very, very good. This is a Charlton side that had a lot of players that are probably going to start their first Sky Bet Championship game come this weekend. And Njoli was a threat, took his goal really well, started the second half and helped us win the game 3-1. So that's my 3 choices for top scorer, breakthrough of the year and youngster to have the biggest influence. And it was Brandon Hanlon, Bradley Garmston and Mikael Njoli. As always, once you get to the end of the video, if you don't get bored and switch off, then please get involved and let us know your thoughts. But obviously, it has been a big summer. Before I get to the actual predicted finish, seen a lot of change. We've had a lot of people leave. The likes of Thomas Holy, Luke O'Neill, Tom Eaves, Callum Riley, Dean Parrott have all moved on. A couple of youngsters have been let go as well, the likes of Tom Hadler. I know Ben Chapman decided to move on off his own accord. Aaron Simpson has decided to leave as well. So it's been a lot of upheaval. But I think we needed that. And we've spoken for years, regardless of whether we agreed with the Steve Evans appointment. We've all said for years that we needed a fresh start at some point, in the sense that it had to be someone who's had no previous affinity or link to the club. So from that respect, I think we've made a good move, and credit to Paul Scally for that. In terms of arrivals, there's been a lot. The first one to come through the door, we know really well. He's been on loan for 2 seasons, and that's Connor Ogilvie. And following him in was goalkeeper Jack Bonham, Lee Hodson, fullback from Rangers, Stuart O'Keefe, Matty Willock and Usain Usise have all come in as Steve Evans and Paul Rayner take on the task of rebuilding and remoulding a midfield that he said was too easy to play through last season. Alfie Jones, under-23 captain for Premier League Southampton, has come in on a season-long loan at centre-back, and I know a lot of their fans were disappointed that he's been allowed to leave for the year, wanted him in and around their squad. Mikael Njoli, that I've already spoken about, looks to be versatile, looks to be very, very quick, can probably play through the middle or from either side, depending on what system we choose to play. Might be that we see him in different roles in home games and away games. And the most recent 3, we did have Nathan Thomas, who unfortunately had to go back to Sheffield United due to him and or his family being homesick, and he's since now joined Carlisle on loan for the season in League 2, so we wish Nathan all the best. Bottom line is some things are more important than football, and I would certainly say that mental health or family, whichever it may be, fall into that category. So all the best to Nathan Thomas, but credit to Steve Evans and Paul Scally and the team for sorting out a replacement straight away, and it came in the form of Mark Marshall, 32 years old, released by Charlton last season, but he did play nearly 30 times for them in their promotion season. He's been a really good player at this level for quite a while, and all the talk Friday night was that he was very impressive in his debut against Southend before tiring. Mikael Mandron, number 10, we know all about him. Not a number 10, he will be a number 9, but he's now signed on a permanent deal, having impressed all summer, on trial. And the final one through the door so far was Alex Jakubiak. Looks to be another versatile attacking player, can play centre forward, can play from the sides. He's arrived on a season-long loan from Premier League Watford, having played a lot of games for Bristol Rovers last season, so it's another player that I know this level. Right, the big question that we all need to know: where do I think Gillingham will finish this season? I think in terms of what we've done in the transfer market, we look stronger generally as a squad than we did last season. But in terms of two big areas that left. Obviously, Thomas Holy was our player of the year 2 seasons ago. He departed for Ipswich. I think Jack Bonham would be more than able in terms of a replacement. But the biggest one is obviously the goals of Tom Eaves, who's now left the club. That's 40 we've got to find from the last 2 campaigns. Have we done that in the form of one player? Certainly not. Have we done it by trying to spread the goals around and add different options? Potentially, but we don't know. I think we'll be fine. I don't think there's any risk of a relegation battle this season, which would be great in terms of where we could be if we do get in a magical Stardust type centre forward. Maybe this bid that has or hasn't or could be accepted could be the difference. So for that reason, at the moment, I'm going to have us finish in this position. Right, I've gone for 9th, which is 4 places higher than we finished last season. As I say, I don't think we'll be in any danger of getting relegated or even dragged into a relegation dogfight this season. I think we'll start the campaign well. We know how quickly Steve Evans' sides tend to get out of the traps. It's just whether we can maintain that and create enough momentum to give enough impetus and longevity to what we're trying to achieve. 9th wouldn't be a disaster for me at all. I think that would represent really good progress in terms of the playoffs, which Steve Evans has talked about quite bullishly. I think we're probably one really big name away from having a real go at that. If we could get one in, then I think we could have an outside chance of getting in the top 6. But as it stands with what we've got, I think it's going to be a sort of higher mid-table finish. I think we'll be stronger defensively. I think Alfie Jones is a great pickup. I think the players that we already had at the football club are decent. We only have to look at their record in 2017-18, the likes of Max Amar and Connor Ogilvie and Gabriel Zaquani are still at the club, Bradley Garmston's still at the club. And we were very good defensively that season when Steve Lovell first came in to take over after the sacking of Adrian Pennock. I think last year Lovell got the balance wrong in terms of trying to get us on the front foot, and he went too far the other way. And Steve Evans quickly picked up on that when he took over. So I think the defenders and the goalkeeper will get a lot more protection from a midfield this season that hopefully will have more balance in terms of defensive know-how, defensive cover, a shield, and attacking thoughts, attacking momentum, players that can get us into good areas up the pitch. I think the likes of Stuart O'Keefe, Usain Usise could be key. Matty Willett looks like he's going to be able to drive us from midfield with the ball, can get about the park without the ball. Regan Charles Cook, I think, could have a good season, whether that's from the start or from the bench. And yeah, so for me, like I say, do we have enough goals in us at the moment? I'm not 100% sure. I think we've got plenty in terms of staying well away of the drop zone and even getting in the top half. But if we want to get in the top 6 and really have a go at trying to get into them playoff berths, then I think we might be one away. And I did tweet last week and say if we can get in another left back and a really good centre forward, then I think we're pretty much set for the whole of the season. But that's my prediction, 9th. I would be more than happy with that. But obviously, as football fans, we always want a little bit more. So we're going to keep an eye on the last few weeks of the transfer window and see what happens. Right, that is enough about Gills on their own. It is that time now where I talk about League One in general. And my predictions. So I will talk in detail about who I think will be champions, who will finish in the top 6, and unfortunately, who will finish in the bottom 4. So my pick for 2019-20 champions of League One is this team coming up on your screen now. My selection is Sunderland, managed by Jack Ross. Now I know there was a few Sunderland fans that I've seen on Twitter that I follow who weren't entirely impressed with his first season at the club at this level. Thinks they maybe should have done better. And I suppose if you look at it in black and white, then the squad they had, perhaps they should have gone up. But you have to remember, excuse me, that Sunderland was a football club that had been relegated twice in 2 seasons. They've been badly mismanaged from top to bottom for far too long, which led to these back-to-back relegations. And I think what Jack Ross has done. He's come in, he's moulded the team to something that he wants it to be. He's put his own stamp on it, but more importantly, he's changed the mentality. He's got Sunderland fans excited again. He's got Sunderland fans wanting to go to games, and he's, more importantly, he's got his team getting used to winning football matches and not losing football matches again. Now, maybe he's had to be slightly cautious in his approach last season to make sure that they didn't lose football matches, because quite frankly, for 2 years previous, they were doing it all too regularly. And maybe that was a contributing factor to the fact that, excuse me, they drew a lot of games that maybe cost them in the end in terms of automatic promotion. But if you look at the players they've got and the squad they've got, if you get it right on the pitch, they're going to be very difficult to beat. They've brought in Mark McNulty up front to add more goals, who's done very well in the bottom 2 divisions of the Football League. They've got Will Grigg, who will now benefit from a pre-season, having arrived in January. He will score goals at this level. He's done it before and he'll do it again. Charlie White looked to be finding some form at the back end of the last season, having missed the early part of the campaign due to injury. So in them 3, they've got plenty of attacking options to score goals, put the ball in the back of the net. They've got Aidan McGeady, who's probably the best player in the division on his day. George Honeyman, Lyndon Gooch, gives them a platform, gives them creativity. Chris Maguire, still at the football club, I believe. In John McLaughlin, they probably got one of the best keepers in the division. Defensively, they were sound last season, and they've added Conor McLaughlin, who's joined from Millwall. Didn't get many games with them in the Championship, but was super impressed with him for Fleetwood a couple of seasons back when they toyed with the idea of getting promoted and got in the playoffs. So I think he'll slot seamlessly in at fullback. So you just look all over the park and they've got very good footballers. I don't think they'll concede many. Like I say, the benefit of being in this division for a year, their players, their staff, their fans are going to know what it's all about, which I think means they're better equipped than last season. For that reason, I can't look beyond Sunderland to be champions of League One come May. In terms of the rest of the top 6, I'm going to go for runners-up to chase them home all the way to the line. Portsmouth, Kenny Jackett's Portsmouth. One of the best managers about at this level. Very strong squad all over the park. I think if you went through it with a fine-tooth comb, there's not many holes you could pick in it. I know they've lost Matt Clark, their highly rated centre-back, to Brighton. But they got good money for him and they've spent it wisely. Bought in a couple of good centre-backs, including Sean Raggett, who's been good at this level. We all know about him as Gills fans. He is a local lad, so it'd be good to see how he gets on. I think he's an upgrade on the likes of Christian Burgess that they've got at the football club. Going forward, they've got good options. They'll score plenty of goals. I know there's talk of Jamal Lowe potentially leaving for Wigan. There's talk amongst football fans on Twitter, Portsmouth fans of lower league football, is that a step up really for Jamal Lowe? I'm not sure, but if he goes, I think they've already replaced him. They've got plenty of options all over the park. So yeah, I think if one team's capable of chasing Sunderland all the way to the line, it'll be Pompey, and I back them to go up automatically with the Mackems. In terms of the playoffs, I'm going to go for Ipswich, Coventry, Peterborough and Rotherham. I think in Paul Lambert, again, I keep repeating myself, it's a manager who knows how to get out of this division. James Norwood, I think, is a massive coup. I think he'll come in, he'll hit the ground running. I think with better players than he's played alongside at Tranmere, and that's no disrespect to Tranmere, at a higher level, I think he'll still score goals. Whether he gets quite the volume that he did for them, I'm not sure, but I still think I'd be quietly confident of backing him getting 15 plus. Yeah, and I think in terms of Ipswich, if they can get used to this level quick enough, they'll have a really good season. And similarly to when Sunderland come down, it's just a case of changing the mentality and getting the players and the fans used to winning football matches more regularly again. Fourth position, I've gone for Coventry, the Sky Blues. Playing away from the Rico again for the second time in 5 seasons is not ideal, but I think in Mark Robbins, they have a manager who doesn't let that affect him, doesn't let that affect his players. He just gets on with a job in hand on the training ground and on the football pitch. They've recruited really well. I think last season the biggest thing for them was that they created plenty but didn't score enough. So if they can add a few more goals to their games, then I think they're going to have a really, really good campaign, and I think they'll end up in the top 6. Peterborough, one of my favourite clubs. If you've watched this channel long enough, you'll know that I have a very strong opinion on them, and that's that they'll always sign what you think are good players. They'll start the season really well, then they'll drop off and become super inconsistent and invariably finish around 8th or 9th. But I think Darren Ferguson knows the football club. He's had the benefit of half a season there now. He's had the benefit of a full pre-season. He looks to know a way he wants them to play. And you can't say that they've not signed some very good players. I mean, they've got Ivan Toney, they've got Matty Godden at the football club, who are assisted by the likes of Sirike Dembele and Marcus Maddison. They've got an added Mo Issa to that front line, best part of $1.5 million or more. And if he recreates the form that he showed at Cheltenham a couple of seasons ago, he's going to be a handful at this division. Defensively, Ryan Tafazolli, who's a player that I've rated for seasons, has gone. He's gone to the Championship, but I think they've got a great replacement in Frankie Kent, who's one of the highest rated players in League Two last season. Brilliant age. And you know, Posh have a good record of signing younger players from the lower leagues or non-league and improving them. And I think the last one that they brought in is the keeper, Christy Pym, the last notable one. It will be very, very good. He was brilliant at Exeter last season. If you watched the Football League highlights regularly, or any of the very good podcasts that are about D3, D4, NTT 20, that type of thing, or if you read the stuff of Gabriel Sutton on Twitter, I think he's a very good keeper. And obviously the excitement building around whether George Boyd can come back and be a homecoming hero is the one to keep an eye on. So yeah, I think this could be their year where they finally gate crash the top 6 again, Posh. And to make up the top 6 is Rotherham. In Paul Warren, I think they've got a manager who knows what he's doing. And he seems to work for good owners. They've not pulled the trigger or become hasty when they've been relegated, and they have become a bit of a yo-yo club between this league and the Championship over the last few seasons. But he knows this division. He knows his football club and he knows his players, and I think they'll have a good campaign again. Whether it's enough to really challenge at the top 2 and go up automatically, I'm not so sure. They've lost a few. The lad Jay, I can't remember his first name, has gone to West Brom in the Championship for good money. Scored 8 or 9 goals from centre half last season. That'll be tricky to replace. Will Vaulks has gone to Cardiff again in the Championship, but they've signed Freddie Ladapo from Plymouth for $500,000. Is he worth $500,000? Not sure. Is that the inflated nature of the football these days, and transfer fees potentially? But no disrespect to Plymouth, he's probably going to be playing with better footballers now for Rotherham. So if they can get good service into him, I'm confident he'll score goals. And if you've got a natural goal scorer, then you'll always have half a chance. So that's my top 6. Sunderland as champions, Portsmouth to chase them home, but ultimately come up just a little bit short as runners-up. And the playoffs will be Ipswich, Coventry, Peterborough and Rotherham. At the other end of the table, unfortunately, I have to back 4 teams to go down. And my 4, sadly, don't kill me fans of these clubs, is these 4 teams. Now, before I go on, obviously it's a slightly tricky situation, and there's 2 berths that, for one reason or another, sadly look like they're already taken. We have 2 sides that are starting on -12 this year, and that's going to be Bolton and Bury. So I'm obviously putting them as the bottom 2 positions, and I've done it in alphabetical order just for clarity. So I've got Bury finishing bottom, and I've got Bolton finishing 23rd. Both clubs, I think all football fans will agree that we keep our fingers crossed that whatever is going on at these football clubs gets sorted, and they can start the season and they can get through the season, and they can then rebuild and hopefully flourish again, because we all have our difficult days with our football clubs, and we all moan about our managers and our players and our chairman, and a lot of our fans are very vocal about our chairman and what he does wrong. But I think we're run stably, and we're in no risk of going the way that Bury and Bolton sadly look like they may go. And let's hope that things do get sorted out. And I think an achievement this season would be that they get through the season, and hopefully their fans have a football club to continue to support and to continue to cheer on, which makes it easier or more difficult, because obviously that's 2 relegation berths already taken. So that's 24th and 23rd. In 22nd, this is a team that I backed to finish in the top 6 last season. Southend stayed up by the skin of their teeth last year. Incredible win to beat Sunderland, I think, on the second to last day of the season, which finally secured their safety. Before that, they'd been horrendous for ages. Have I seen any real improvements in the transfer window? Not really. Have they lost players that have been good for them over the last few seasons? I think so. Will Simon Cox replicate the same form that he showed last season? Will he score enough goals to keep him above the dreaded drop line? I'm not convinced. So, and the other thing is Kevin Bond is a manager. I know he's gone in there and he's kept him up, but is he cut out to be a football manager? Does he know enough about League One and League Two and lower league football? Again, I'm not convinced. So for that reason, I have to back Southend to be relegated. And in 21st, the final relegation place, again, similar situation. I think this team have got a really good midfield, but they've lost really key players. They've not replaced them. And I'm not really sure what's going on. I'm talking about Oxford United. I think I read the other day or heard they've got one striker on their books, and that's Jamie Mackey. Now, no disrespect to Jamie Mackey, he's been a hard-working pro throughout the Football League and in the Premier League throughout his career, but is he going to score your goals? Not really. They've lost Curtis Nelson. Has he been replaced? No. Will Rob Dickey, who plays centre-half, be as good without him? I'm not so sure. So, suddenly that puts a lot of pressure on this decent enough midfield. So, I can only reiterate this is as it stands, that I find it, and if Oxford can go and buy a goal scorer or two and can get in some defenders to help out others, then they could invariably finish safely in mid-table again. But as it stands, looking at what they've got and what they haven't got, I have to back Oxford to be relegated. So yeah, that's my bottom four. Teams that are surviving by the skin of the teeth are going to be the likes of Accrington, Wycombe, Rochdale, Tranmere. That's up to 17th. So yeah, don't shout at me, fans of them clubs. I'm sorry. I have to pick someone to finish top. I have to pick someone to finish bottom, and I have to pick 22 other teams to finish in between, or 21 in this situation, because of what's going on at two of these football clubs. Right, it's enough from me. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I do apologise if I've put your team somewhere where you think is ridiculously low. If I've put your team higher than you think, then you can thank me. I certainly don't expect you to agree with me, because that's what creates debate, and that's what we all love as football fans. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to me talk about football. Please keep doing all the usual. Subscribe on YouTube. Tell football fans about us. Tell Gillingham fans, fans of other clubs. Comment on Twitter. Find us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. And until the next video, up the Gills.